Welcome to the podcast with your favorite cash flow guys, Mike and Blaine. Giving you the best advice while having a beer. When you're running a business, there are problems every day. Let Mike and Blaine help you out and guide your way. Cheers to the good times with Mike and Blaine for business, beer, and BS.
Hey, it's Mike and Blaine, episode 132. I'm Mike Mylan, also known as Cashflow Mike. That is my partner, my friend, the CEO and founder of Dry Run. Blaine, what's up, man? Blaine Birch.
Oh, man, I'm ready to go. But more than our streaming software. So if anyone's watching it live, there's a couple places it'll be live, but apparently LinkedIn just can't hack it today. So, we're just going to carry on.
Yeah, I liked how you said that. You said everybody else got their shit together, but LinkedIn.
Yeah, it's not the first time. LinkedIn.
Yeah, right? So,
jeez, get your shit together. But
man, I've got to talk about our title for today, Hops and Hardships. That's one of the hardships of running a podcast.
Always. It's a good thing we have beer. Helps cover it up.
That's actually a good name for a podcast, Hops and Hardships.
That is a good one. Should we start another podcast?
Well, we would, I guess it'd be the crying in your beer genre.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know what? It could be like Biz Beer and BS. It's like Hops and Hardships. That might be that. Actually, I kind of dig that. It sounds good, and it still would be a great. It would suit us totally for the business chat anyway. So, but yeah, good one today. That's a good one you picked up.
Yeah. So we're talking about business, which I'm going to explain why I picked that one today. Beer. So what are you drinking?
I am drinking. So because we're talking hops and hardships, I pulled out Cerebral Brewing and Future Tense because it's unknown. Where is the industry going? And that's what we're going to talk about today. And Cerebral makes some terrific beer. And you also notice I've got on a Snake Lake hat today because I'm, anything I can do to support small independent breweries, and Snake Lake is a terrific one in Sylvan Lake, Alberta. If you're by Sylvan Lake, make sure you drop by Snake Lake. They got terrific beer. Yeah,
well, I tell you, it was inspired, right? My beer choice, who, by the way, was given to me by Mike Mylan. So my beer sponsor of this episode is Mike Mylan, Baltimore Mike. This is one of the beers that he sent. But after I chose the topic, I went and looked at I've got a whole drawer full of just beers in the fridge of just stuff he sent. So I'm like, ooh, this one kind of fits a little bit with some of the points I want to make about craft breweries. So if you haven't picked up on what the topic's going to be, it's about craft breweries and what's going on in that industry. So I am drinking the Vaqueros Cowboy or Cannoli Cowboy. Right, so nice. It's a chocolate milk stout. Probably tastes like a cannoli.
Nice.
And I'll tell you why I picked it. When we get into it, because I got to make a point with what I think about a beer like this. So there you go.
Sounds good.
Talking about beer sponsors, right? So let me talk about Rachel. Right, she came back. Right, she was gone for like an episode and back. She goes, no, it's worth it. I want to sponsor more episodes. Rachel Barnett of Gentle Frog. If you want to learn QuickBooks, go listen, talk to, engage with, and buy her services, and you will learn QuickBooks guaranteed.
And Larry Weinstein, CPA in Houston. If you're looking for a CPA, you got to hook up with Larry there, who I just saw a couple weeks ago. And I also have to mention, because Baltimore Mike always makes me do this little announcement of being Canadian. After we hung out, I now understand why the Ravens are better than the Chiefs. So he tells me I got to do my little saying every week. So if you can convince Baltimore Mike to come up with a different little phrase for me, that I will.
He has no original thoughts. He has to repeat a thought. What the hell's wrong with this guy? I mean, like he has one track mind. He's like I only think one thing: Chiefs better than Ravens.
It's sneaky.
So that's all I heard when you talk about how great the Chiefs are. I mean, Ravens are just like a blurb. It's like a speed bump. You're like, we got to go to Baltimore again. Well, that's a win, right? And speaking of, how do I know? Because that bottle right there is the Mike Mylan Bowl trophy. And if I wasn't right, that would not be in my background. So
well, I'm just going to thank you, Mike, for supplying us both with a beer, because Mike here probably isn't as grateful as he should be.
I'm grateful. I'll give him all the props for giving us beer, but every time he brings this garbage up about the Baltimore Ravens, I'm not having it. We're not having that on this show.
Well, Baltimore Mike, if you want to send a different phrase, you can. But no, he requested it, and he delivered beer directly to me in Scottsdale. So if he comes up with a different little saying, I can pull out something else.
Here's the difference between Baltimore Mike and me. I'm going to quote the wedding singer. I have a microphone. I can say any damn thing I want.
All right. Well, there you go. Our beer sponsor. Anyway, thank you so much for our beer sponsors. We love each and every one of you. And yeah, it's always exciting to have multiple beer sponsors for every episode. Is just super cool for us. So we thank you guys so much.
All right. Always got to give a shout out to neighbor Pat. So I had brand new boards delivered yesterday. Brand new. They are from the American Cornhole Association. So these things are premier. And they got this training logo on them too. Everybody goes, I want a skull, I want a flag, I want this. No, I got these training type boards where it tells you where they kind of hit and what percentages of high percentage from this side or that side or parts of the board. So I'm like going, well, Pat needs those, right? So I'm like going, maybe if I give him a little bit of an edge and give him some training boards, like training wheels to play on, maybe he'll do better. So he comes over last night to help me break them in. Well, I thought he was breaking in the concrete around them because barely did he hit the boards. I think it was distracting, all these training aids on the boards, because the final game, we only played 2, right? 2. We're going to play 3 games because it's usually best 2 out of 3, but we only got to 2 last night because that's all it took. And the last game, he did not get skunked, and he knows that's a bad thing in this neighborhood if you get skunked. He got beat 21-1. 21-1.
Oh boy, Pat! I just want to thank you for the beer. Yes. Mike again seems to not be so grateful for his beer. So.
People are going to stop sponsoring the show.
I know. I want you guys to keep sponsoring us. You can send stuff to me.
No, that's my buddy, man. He comes down here. We chop it up. We discuss life and throw bags and have a great time. That's my buddy. He knows I'll give him hell though. If I didn't give him hell, he'd be mad at me. I'm sure that he wants that as part of his experience with me as a friend. Yeah. So, hey, speaking of experience with us as a friend, if you're looking for that special Fadiddle Hopper, you can go to mikeandblake.com, where you can do things like buy us a beer. You can buy a shirt. You can buy other things, buy us merch, buy our merch, any of those things. Or if you just missed an episode and you don't have it on Apple or Google or wherever you get your podcast, go right there. All the episodes are listed for you right on our website. So you don't have you never have to miss out on anything because they're all right there for you. So check it out.
Make sure you like, sponsor, follow, and catch every episode. So let's dive into this, because this is a topic that's awfully meaty. I've been reading a little bit about this as well. The decline in the craft beer industry. And I think we should dig into that, because the thing is, it's not just the craft beer industry. There's parallels to virtually every other business in a lot of ways, and a lot of related businesses as well. And I think it's a good time to dig into that.
Yeah. So when I thought about it, right, first of all, it was an email that came in. I subscribed to a thing called 21 Hats, right? It's just a little small business thing. They got a podcast, but they got articles, and it's just kind of keeps me, involved with what's happening, from other people's perspectives. Yeah. And the article was about the craft beer industry today. So I'm like, well, I didn't realize it was struggling, really, because you and I buy a lot of craft beer. So I'm like, I think we keep it afloat. Yeah, we should keep it afloat, right? And just as show alone. Yeah. But it started to make me think, about, okay, well, why do they say it's in decline? Because growth was almost zero in 2022, and it was negative in 23. Right, so that shows me that everything kind of has a bell curve. And I remember when I first started the bars, craft beer was like almost nothing, right? Early 2000s, you had a couple here and there, but most people were still just drinking just your session beer. Session beer meaning you just drink beer after beer after beer. So then it started to come in, and it was about 3 years into running my first bar that I built a bar that was based on some craft beers. It was called Bottoms Up Brew House, and we had 70 or so beers, like 30 of them on tap, and most of them craft, right? As a matter of fact, I didn't put any domestics on tap, and it made the Budweiser rep mad, like going, hey, you got to put our beer on tap. I'm like going, no, I'm going to try something different. We're not doing that. And it worked out in my favor because that was the rise of craft beer. So I'm thinking probably 2008, 9, 10, somewhere in there is when, at least in my world at that point in time, craft beer started to rise, and people were starting to make it. And it was starting to be talked about more in just regular conversation. Now I can see it going the other way. People are less talking about it. People are less focused on it. In general conversations. What do you think?
Well, I think there's a lot of sort of context that we can look at, but I think there's lessons to be learned for a lot of other industries too. Craft beer isn't going anywhere. It just grew so incredibly fast and got so saturated. And I don't think they really know, like, it's like any other market. It'll settle into its groove, right? To the market demand. And I know in Edmonton, we went from basically having like 1-2 sort of craft beer breweries to I believe we have somewhere between 15 to 20 right now. And we're talking that was all in the last 5-6 years. Like most of it just sort of arrived, right? And there's only so much capacity. And then there's also, you have to be really good at it. You either have to have amazing beer or probably amazing food or an amazing location. You have to have something that's going to give you some type of advantage, right? And I kind of think the industry just grew so incredibly fast that it's settling in, and there'll be, unfortunately, a little bit of a reckoning for some of them. And it's slower growth, but it went from 0 to 100 and then probably 120 so fast that I think it's just got to settle back down a little bit.
Well, I think people's just taste evolve, right? Things go kind of in and out of favor. I mean, I like what you said about you got to have good beer. If you have terrible beer, nobody's going to buy it. They'll buy one, right? To taste it and try it and go, oh, yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah.
But I remember, when I was running the bars in the beginning, it was all vodka, right? Vodka. And then over time, people started to introduce, some more flavors into the vodka. And it kind of went through the same thing. And now it's back to more just plain vodka, right? So it went through this growth curve itself with everything flavored went into this vodka. When I ran the bars early on, tequila was for those folks trying to get hammered and for margaritas. You did tequila shots. That was about it. Now, tequila is a regular drink built in to just sip on ice and those type of things. So, I mean, even its growth curve has changed. And bourbons are really popular right now, right? People are collecting. I mean, my buddy Chad, he showed me, apparently there's an app out there. I forget what the app is, but it shows you the value of your collection. It was like $16,000. His collection. He sent me a thing. I mean, I'd have to look on the phone, but I'm like going, what? Can you imagine spending and having $16,000 worth of bourbon in your house?
Yeah, that's just crazy. That's just crazy to me. Now, I will say, and so I think there's this might be a little bit part of the culture too. Like my wife and I are a little bit of foodies. We always love to go to virtually every place we eat is independent. We like a place that's got a bit of a story and got some really good food and is kind of interesting, something unique. But that goes into the things I drink too. So even like wine, I don't know much about wine, but I will go to some places and ask them for advice from somebody that knows wine before I'll buy anything, because I can tell the difference when I drink them. I just don't follow it that much. Bourbon I've been getting into lately, and you just said it, like bourbon's kind of a thing right now, right? And I bought some I think it's Heaven's Door, that was just outstanding recently. And tequila, I've got a few little independent tequila brands too, and it's like I love the sort of craft coffee as well. I love the sort of craft food and drink. But you can see that this is, it's not that they're just competing against like another alcohol. They're competing against other sort of like a brewery where they want you to come in. They're competing with other sorts of forms of entertainment. Mm-hmm. And the drink, well, yeah, they're competing with other sort of forms of alcohol, but they also probably competing with craft coffees and teas and things as well, right? But you know, there's other things involved. Like I read not too long ago that half the restaurants in Canada are burning cash. They're in the red. That is going to affect breweries as well. Of course it is. It's right in the same area code, but boy, do they have some really expensive capital assets, like the big bins and shit that they have to have. Their startup costs and their carrying costs have to be a lot more in a lot of ways sometimes than a restaurant. So they have some advantages, but some challenges too, right? And they're getting hit with the same thing everyone else is.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, if you just go pure competition, teas, other alcohols, they're not competing with craft beer. It was the rise of all those breweries. Like you said, was the numbers 5 to 30, you know, what in Canada or your hometown? There used to be
we went from literally probably 2 to 15 to 20 in the last maybe 7 years.
Think about that, right? When there was 2, you're like, oh yeah, both of them are cool. They're hip. I mean, they're probably packed. You know, people.
They weren't. That was the thing. The first 2 didn't even, like, one of them didn't even have like a brew pub. You could only buy the beer at the liquor store, and all of a sudden it's amazing, because that's the other thing is they were so early that they're playing catch up because everybody else came in and set a new standard, right? It's really interesting. It's a very interesting industry.
Yeah, and that's what I was alluding to, is that every new entrant had to distinguish themselves, so they kept raising the game, right? Because you know, and it started with how to get people in. Well, then you hold events. That's where they started. I mean, I remember now in the early 2000s, there was craft beer, there was beer festivals like in the park, where all these brewers in St. Louis would come to the, you know, to Forest Park, and you just bought tickets like a wing eating competition and went around and tasted all the beers.
There was one here just like 2 weeks ago. We didn't go because I've been to a bunch of them, and honestly, I'm like, for the amount of money I spent, I'll just go buy some really nice bottles. But you know, but we've been to those. There's ones in Edmonton, Calgary, all over the place now. But those have changed too, right? Even the atmosphere and everything of those have changed. So I'm not, you know, it's different. There's just growing pains. I think that's what it is. A ton of growing pains.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, and everybody wanted to. You have the brewery. The next thing you really add is the tap room. Why? Because you want to give people the opportunity to buy it if they can't go to the store, right? Yep. Because it was hard to get shelf space for some of these folks early on. So they say, well, I got to give somebody, you know, build a community, just like you do in your own business. You got to build a community. People talking about it. So they're hosting events. They're bringing people into the tap room. They're doing flights and testers and these type of things. But then everybody started doing it, right?
Sunday afternoons, right? Like that's where they make their money. Well, I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned on the show or not, but we were at a brewery in Houston, and you can tell me if I've talked about it, but we were there. It was a Tuesday night, and I wanted to go to this other brewery. They were closed, or was it Wednesday? It might have been Wednesday night. And so I had to go find one. We took an Uber over to a brewery, and they had trivia night because they were just trying to draw people in and make sure that they've actually have traffic coming in. Man, that's a tough. But you know, I find it's amazing because there's some breweries just they've got a mystique and somehow they do it. And there's a little like there's 2 brewery districts in Edmonton, and which I love because we can just kind of ride to them, and they're close to each other. We just ride our bikes over and they're close to each other. A bunch of breweries really close, where that's not the same down here in Phoenix and Scottsdale. They seem to be scattered everywhere, maybe a few downtown Phoenix. But one of my favorite ones from downtown, from like District A, opened a second location in District B. And this was just last summer. And I think the second they opened, they have the world's largest patio and it's full. And I don't know why. And like, well, we like it. We love the beer there, but there's some other cool breweries within like a block or two. They've got people there, but these guys just are full. And I think it actually draws people to the area, which is great. But what is it about these guys that can get 100 people on their patio and the other guys have got like 6, 8, 10, right? I don't know what it is.
I can tell you what it is. It's atmosphere, right? There's something else that they're doing because, you know, think about any like bar district you go to. Why you'll see that. You'll see one place bumping and hopping and the other place is struggling, right? It's because you go in there, the music is a certain way.
And we start playing cards while we drink our beer, and it's always busy. There's always a ton of activity, and they've got great beer, a great staff, a very cool atmosphere, a nice patio. And it's like they just have all the check marks, right? Like they've got, and a great location. And it's like, boy, these guys have just nailed down every check. And that just helps
money.
them pull.
Printing money. Yeah, printing money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, that reminds me of this, you know, story about my bar or somebody else's where in 2008 we had to cut costs. And I think I told you the story about I cut labor, the person next door cut entertainment, which means they weren't doing the direct TV and they weren't doing the karaoke's and all that type of stuff. Well, you just suck the life right out of it. So when you cut costs, you can't cut the cost that drives your revenue, right? You take away people's reasons to stop coming to your place and they're going to oblige. They're going to say, okay, well, we're going to stop coming. And I saw it one night, my place, lights, music, line out the door, next door, 3 old guys sitting at the bar watching soccer, right? Which one do you go into, right?
Exactly.
That's what happens. They're right next door to each other. One's busy, one's not.
Yeah.
Well, if it's me and it's not my place, I'm going to go watch soccer till the line goes down. Yeah, it's part of it. But it's all to do with that energy that's created in that place. I mean, when you go out to have a drink, right? You go out to be in that type of place. You don't want to be in the solitude, quiet. No. You just don't. You want, even if you're not talking to other people at the bar, you like the noise. You like the hum.
Like the activity. There's, and you guys were there, or at least I know you saw it, the Whining Pig that was kind of close to our place. We walk up to there quite often. And a lot of times we'll walk over there on like a Wednesday night, a Thursday night, and it's you think it's going to be quieter, but oftentimes it's actually, there's a lot of people in that place. And we walk by this bar that's kind of a Mexican place, but it's got a giant location, a huge patio. It's huge inside. And we walk by and you'll see 1 or 2 people sitting at the bar. And we've seen that for years. I'm like, how are they still open? I've never seen people in there. And you walk down to the little place at the end and you walk in and it's always got atmosphere. It's a super cool place, a great beer menu. again, we'll go in there, we'll grab a couple of decks of cards, we'll play cards, we'll hang out. There's always people chatting with us, and it just has this vibe and this life to it.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I don't know how they get it, but they just nailed it.
Now, the Whining Pig, I'm telling you, bar setup, the way you architect the bar is super important. And I always try to put a U shape in, right? Because if I'm willing to sit at the bar, I kind of want to talk to people, right? That corner, across, whatever. I just kind of want to talk. If I sit there, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
So a U-shaped bar offers the best community.
Yeah. Yeah. Good call. Yep.
Right. Instead of in just in one straight line, right? Because then it's hard to, you might talk to one or two people, but it's about it.
Yeah.
U-shaped bar. And doesn't the Whining Pig have the U-shaped bar?
It has a U shape, and it's narrow, so you can easily talk with people across, and you can be part of conversations. And there's always something. See, the other thing is there's always a ton of regulars. Like we're there quite often, but not like some of these regulars. It's kind of like us in Roseau and Edmonton. Like we're there like 4 or 5 times a week. Here, there's people there that are there all the time. They know each other. They know the bartenders. They probably kind of recognize us because we're there semi-regularly, I suppose. But it gives that atmosphere because they know each other. They're talking, and they draw people in to those conversations, and they're ordering food in the door like they live it's like their apartment almost. Like it's, how do they build that culture? That culture is just, it's like you said, it's worth gold. There, it's just that's the difference between the ones that are thriving and not, right?
Yeah, well, it's not just that. Like we talked about, A, differentiation. You've got to differentiate yourself in the market.
Yeah,
but B, there's a lot of costs associated with these things that I don't think people consider. And it's not just the startup cost, because I almost bought a brewery in Kirkwood, Missouri, right? When I actually bought a different place, I almost bought this one that was already an operating brewery. I don't even know if it's open now, but it was, it was right there, right down the street from Bar Louie, which means you got a great Bar Louie is kind of a bigger name in that place in, but that area had a lot of traffic. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking, man, this could be good. But then I started thinking, oh, I don't know how to brew beer, and these are massive tanks, and just make it like, you better know your shit, or be able to hire somebody. And I'm like, I'm just going to be hostage to somebody that knows how to do this, right? Because I don't. Yeah. The equipment itself, I priced it out just brand new because I knew what I was trying to make an offer on the place for. I'm like, what can I do it myself if I just built it? Yeah, it was a couple $100,000.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. The costs are because they probably, a lot of them still have a kitchen as well, so it's like double.
Yeah. And then you've got, just the operating cost. And then, people that get into the brewery game have to compete in 3 different areas. They have to be manufacturers, and they've got to distribute, right? Or find some way to help distribute for them. Then they also, if they add on a restaurant or a tap room, now they're running a service-based restaurant business. You're running 3 distinct businesses. And sometimes these operating costs just compile, right? One problem begets the other. And, that's where this can get really complex really fast.
And that's I alluded to it like really early in the show, that they have some potential advantages. And the potential advantage is they can have immediate cash flow from the brew pub when people are coming in. If they have a restaurant, now you got a restaurant. A lot of them don't. They have small bits of food or a food truck, but they have potentially that ability, but then they're also the manufacturer. But like we're talking before with your business, it's like, well, you can, if you do it right, you can drive some immediate cash flow to the brew pub that helps pay for the manufacturing side, but the manufacturing side helps you distribute, but you also kind of double the pain too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You've got to be good at all 3 levels. People, it's not like Cash Flow Mike builds a course and I just talk cash flow all day long. It's not like that. It's not like, I have a dry cleaning shop. People just bring their clothes to me and I'm good at dry cleaning. I've got to run 3 distinct businesses at the same time.
Yeah. And I think the ones that do it, from what I've seen, the brew pubs and the breweries that do it really well, it's beer first. The brew pub has atmosphere, exactly like you said. It's just a cool place. They did that well. And the third thing is, I don't know if I've been to a brewery that excels with beer. I might be wrong. I'd have to think about it. So I don't want to throw shade on too many here. But if it's like a full restaurant menu, it's like immediately my warning bells go on. I'm like, they're going to have at best average beer. The ones that do food well have a very small, like if you go to Odd Company in Edmonton, especially downtown, if you go to downtown in Edmonton, their food menu is they have a smash burger, they have a chicken burger, and they have like cheesies, which are basically Cheetos down here in the States, right? Okay. That's it. And their chicken burger I've tried and it's not great. Their hamburger
is it like ground chicken? What is that? How's it a chicken burger?
Well, it's almost like it had chicken fingers on it, but I didn't think it was
breast, but just chicken sandwich.
It was basically a chicken sandwich, but their smash burger is the best burger in the city.
All right.
That thing is unbelievable. It is so good. And I don't know how they nailed that one out of the park. And when they opened up their location on the south side, they have a smash burger, and they also have Italian style pizza, but nothing else. Their menu is there's a couple different pizzas or a burger, and that's all you get. And I've seen that in a number of breweries where it's like they'll have one thing that they're kind of good at, or like. There's a brewery, I want to remember the name because Ale Architect in Edmonton. They have the brewery, but what they did is they went to a little independent pizza chain, like pizza company, not chain, pizza company in Edmonton, and said, do you want to open up in the back here? And they got this little itty bitty room with a little itty bitty window, and you can order pizza from them. And it's like this little, it's almost like the Starbucks in the bookstore. It's the pizza shop inside the brewery. But it takes up like 100 square feet. Like it's tiny, but their pizza is great. Like that's how you do it. That draws people in, but the brewery doesn't have to be good at food.
Yeah. So, I mean, speaking of not being good at food, I bet Dry Run is fantastic at forecasting cash flow, but not good at food.
Not good at food. I'm not bad at food. But Dry Run's not good at it. Well, now if you were running a food business, we could probably help you. But let me tell you a little bit about Dry Run.
I was going to say you almost had a swing and a miss. It's like at the midpoint, right? And we don't have a title sponsor. Am I going? Oh, it's going to be Blaine's time. Going to be Blaine's.
We have a title sponsor. It's called Dry Run this week. So, and I will tell you just like 30 seconds. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Dry Run. So, and businesses now are struggling. Like it's a bit of a jungle out there right now. Knowing your cash flow, knowing what's happening in your finances and where you're headed with your finances, looking at last year's financials aren't going to help a whole lot. Knowing where you're going is going to help a ton. So come and talk with us at Dry Run. We're going to help you understand exactly what's happening in your cash flow, where you're headed, who owes you money, and what happens if you get paid late, if you get paid on time, what's happening in your business, model scenarios, build budgets, roll them up. Some of the customers that have come to us lately that absolutely love us, they come because they're dealing with complicated cash flow issues, complicated financial issues, multi-location, multi-currency, a bunch of different people. And we can help you understand exactly where your business is headed and make it easier for everybody through the entire chain. So come and visit us at dryrun.com.
There you go. Hey, if you have not checked out dryrun.com, we're Dry Run or cash flow forecasting. Take it from Cashflow Mike. Go check it out.
Thanks, Mike.
You like that? A little endorsement over the top. I thought you were going to swing and miss at that. I'm like going, oh, speaking of, I thought you were going to miss.
No, it just took me a second because I was still thinking we had our title sponsor, but now our title sponsor is Dry Run, and next week Cashflow Mike.
There you go.
And last time I did a segue for you, you kind of were like, "What?" Because the same thing, because it takes a second to register, right? Like it's like, what?
I actually like that about it. I'm like, oh shit, that's me. Like,
Exactly.
I think it's one of those little things. It's like sneaking in that word, like I did at the beginning.
Yeah, it's
Got it.
It was good. That was a good segue. So, okay, so back to the breweries. And we've been talking a little bit about this, and I'm going to go into a little bit of BS. And again, I don't remember if I told you this story, but we talking about that brewery we went to in Houston, the event they had. I just thought it was really interesting because we walked into the brewery and the style of the brewery, talking about the atmosphere and the style, was not. It felt like a very modern, light, almost Hawaiian vibe brewery. Lots of just that light atmosphere. But then we walked in and there's like Ozzy just blaring. Like, oh, this is awesome. I look around, I'm like, this doesn't look like Ozzy, but cool, man. Like I'm digging it. So I walk up to the bar and the bartender's just grooving. He's got Crazy Train and he's just like, boom, 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 you know, like this is awesome, right? Like, oh man, but I looked over and they had a DJ. And all I can say is, I'm like, that dude doesn't look like a DJ. But I guess he's rocking Ozzy, so whatever. I'm going with it, right?
All right.
But he did not look like your typical DJ. In fact, he didn't look like DJ at all. And the song came to an end, and then the guy's like, all right, question number 3. And then the bartender goes, it's trivia night. And I'm like, oh, shit, okay. And the guy, then you realize, oh, that guy looks like a real trivia nut. So that makes total sense. Now I get it. Now I get the vibe. But it was super fun because he had his trivia, and after each trivia question, he had a song that kind of went with it. So it was really eclectic music. People in there were really dialed in. Like they were excited. I don't even know if they win anything, but they were pumped on this. But I thought, that's pretty cool for like a Wednesday night, middle of Houston. Nobody's leaving the house, and they drew some people in just because it's kind of a fun little trivia night. And I thought, that's kind of cool because I'm guessing that most of the revenue comes, like I said, maybe a bit Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, probably a little on Sunday afternoon as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, these breweries, like the brew pubs, those type of folks, they have to figure out how to get folks in, right? We've already talked about like differentiation with that type of environment or otherwise.
Yeah.
You've got spending preferences that change. I used to drink tequila, now I drink craft beer, now I drink bourbon, that happens. So that kind of cuts the wallet share of the craft brewer. The cost itself and operating, that's a hindrance, for these things right now, especially if you were great as an engineer and you can make beer in your garage and all of a sudden you're going to say, we should do this as a business, then you forget that it's 3 businesses in one.
Yeah.
But this is what led me to pick Cannoli Cowboy, right?
Yeah. Right.
This has been the biggest change I've seen in the last decade, I'll say 5 years. I'm going to say last 5 years, is they will mix anything and everything into a craft beer now. Yeah. I don't care if it's cannolis, if it's raspberries, if it's shoe leather, they will put it in the beer, right?
They will do it.
They will do it. I mean, you have beer flavors of anything. You're like, what? Mango Stardust? What the hell is that?
Yeah, no, I've seen, well, because me, like I'm always digging around some craft beer, looking at the interesting stuff, and especially barrel aged stouts, which like I love those. I got a fridge full of them, and they have everything under the sun from I had a Prairie Artisan Ales Prairie Bomb not too long ago, and it's like they have coffee, vanilla, chocolate, and hot peppers in that beer. And it's just, but it's good. They got it. They did it right. They balanced it out. But the stuff they put in beer these days, some of it works, and I'll tell you, some of it is a pretty big fail. So, some of it just really enhances it.
But every experimentation like that is just another form of differentiation, right? Mm-hmm. I need somebody to get it. Like, I lived in Seattle, and Portland and all. Oregon has a ton of craft brewers and Rogue breweries in Oregon, right?
Yep.
You've heard of Rogue. Did you ever
I've tried half their beer. Yep.
have you ever tried the beard beer?
I don't remember that one. No. Yeah. Probably
Yeah.
never got up to where we were at. Yeah.
All right. So they have a specialty line of beers that they call the beard beer, and they collect yeast from the brewmaster.
Ugh.
And they use that yeast from his beard, the clippings of his beard, in the damn beer. Now, come on.
Pour the beer out, and it'll be like, it is. Remember, because I'm sure it's the same down here, but I remember up in Canada, you go to a party as a kid and you would have like the punch bowl, and the punch bowl was a mix of a bunch of weird shit.
Yeah.
With like they put all kinds of stuff in. It'll be this weird kind of pinky red color and sweet and fruity. And I'm like, that's what some of these beers taste like. And it's so nostalgic. And I'm like, but this stuff is like pea soup thick and sweet, but it's delicious. There must be beer at the bottom of this so they can call it beer. I get that. But like Drecker has some really good ones. Very different, but man, I got to tell you, they're pretty good. It's just it doesn't feel like beer to me, but man, they're tasty as hell.
Yeah. So speaking of weird things that you drink, so in the military, there's such event called a dining in or a dining out, right? And it's where it's a formal event and it has a whole bunch of like ritual to it, right? A dining in is for soldiers only. A dining out is when you bring your spouse or your partner, right?
Okay.
Well, so a dining in includes, and I don't think it's in the dining out. It might be, somebody's going to correct my ass on this for sure, because it's been a long time. But a dining in has this concoction called grog, right? And you have to drink from the grog. But it ain't like a bunch of alcohols like you're talking about, like that. What do they call that? Bathtub, whatever. I forget what they call
Swamp
that.
water.
Yeah, something like that. But this has like dirt, and everybody that puts something in the grog has a story. There's a reason why that's included. The dirt we walked on in Afghanistan, or it's like everything has a deep connection to it, right? Some people might put mustard for whatever weird reason, but there's a reason why you put the mustard in there, or jalapenos for the, or who knows. So you're putting this thing in there, and then everybody has to drink from the grog at least once during the night. Take a drink from it. But it's gross. It's absolutely gross. I don't know why you would do that. They probably don't do it now because it's probably like
can't do that stuff anymore.
Can't do that shit anymore. But we did then, back in the 1900s, kids. There was weird things like that going on.
Things have changed quite a bit. You probably can't get away with much of that anymore. I do. As soon as you said mustard and something weird, I do. Again, a little bit of BS here. I do remember back. Oh boy, this is probably I was mid-20s sort of thing, late 20s, and we used to go ice fishing, which you probably don't do much in Texas. And we would catch a fish, and then we would look and go, well, let's cook some. But, we were too young and too dumb to have anything that you could actually cook with and make it taste good. So I remember one trip we had mustard pike. I don't know why we had mustard in the truck, but we had mustard, and it was not very good. And then we also had Bailey's Perch, and that was worse. That was just Bailey's cooking with fresh perch. We ate it, but it was quite awful, actually.
Oh, okay. So you're talking about like Bailey's Irish liqueur on fish.
In a cast iron pan over a little cooking hot plate on the lake, standing on ice with a hole right there when we were ice fishing. Yeah, it was awful. It was quite awful. It was not the best idea.
So,
I think it should have been plain.
So this is just three. This is just three guys drinking beer, fishing. Like, you know what we ought to do? Cook this fish in this Bailey's.
Yeah, Bailey's perch and mustard pike. It was. Yeah, I have become a much better cook since those days where we pulled out the old mustard pike. But,
hey, I was super poor early on. I would do fried bologna, right? Fried bologna, and if you cook it just in a pan on the stove, it curls up in like a cup.
Yeah,
you ever seen that? Then I'd squirt mustard in the center of it and kind of roll it up and just eat it like that. And it's fantastic. Fried bologna,
pretty good, actually.
It is actually pretty, but it's a poor man's meal. I'm telling you, it's a poor man's meal.
But see, those things go together, so that's why it tastes because that actually sounds pretty good back in the day.
So the thing that Courtney just gets grossed out when I eat it, and I don't do it very often, but it's one of those things like, what are you talking about? I grew up on this. My mom used to make me these sandwiches all the time. Yeah. When you think peanut butter, what do you think goes with it?
No, jelly, banana, jelly, honey.
Banana if you're Elvis, honey if you're a kid. No, try this. Just one time, go try it, and you're like, oh, that's not bad. Peanut butter and butter.
That sounds all right. I'm okay with that.
I'm telling you, it's just a regular ass sandwich. But my mom used to make it for me. She goes, hey, you want peanut butter and butter sandwich? I'm like, yeah. And then my grandpa used to make, this thing called just milk toast. Just a bowl of milk with a piece of bread in it and put some sugar on it, maybe some cinnamon. He goes, that's what we had in the Depression. He called it milk toast. That's what, that's what it was. A piece of bread sitting in milk, just some sugar and a little bit of cinnamon over the top.
That doesn't sound quite as good as peanut butter and butter.
Peanut butter and butter was pretty good. So if you're looking for poor people tips from Mike, this was the episode. You tuned in the exact episode,
or just some really bad cooking tips. I do cook much better now. I could probably give you some good tips on stuff now, but back then I'd try stuff, but it didn't always work. So,
all right, would you ever start a brewery? Would you ever buy one or start one? All right, why not?
Well, you alluded to the fact already. I don't know enough about it, and there is a massive learning curve, and the massive learning curve is not just in like you're setting your benchmark. It's like you have to have excellent beer. I don't know how to make beer, so I have to rely on somebody and hope I have a good brewmaster. I can maybe recognize it by tasting it. You might have to have some sort of food offering. I'm a bit of a foodie. I can recognize it by tasting it. I am an okay cook, but no, I do not know enough about that. I don't know enough about the service industry. I don't know enough about virtually every gap in that business model. There's probably 50 gaps that I'd look at and go, that's not where I've spent the last 20 years learning anything. I don't think I could excel there at all.
Yeah, see, I'm the same way. When I watch I don't even have to watch it. Neighbor Pat can just describe the steps of what he goes through to make one batch of beer, which to him is like a Saturday afternoon. Hey, no problem. I'm like going, oh yeah, shit, that's a lot. You got to measure that and you got to figure this out. And what if it don't taste right? I mean, there's so many things they have to do that I cannot.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I don't think I want to. It's not that I can't. I don't want to.
Well, and that's the key is you can know all the steps. It's like building software. You can know all the steps. Doesn't mean it's going to be good, right? Like it's really hard to be really good. And so like, if I look at what's the difference between, like just sort of I'm just trying to think of a kind of a very average IPA and like Pliny the Elder. Like the difference is you have an unbelievable brewmaster who is like an absolute gem, and probably a little bit of luck involved, and they nailed a recipe and they nailed the process and the systems and everything to make it unbelievable. Like, oh my God, this is good. And then you have basically the same recipe that fails miserably. And man, it's hard to be the one that would be in charge of that.
Even the biggest companies fail sometimes at scale. Here's what I mean. I lived in St. Louis for 25 years. I know what Budweiser tastes like. Right from the tap. I know what it's supposed to taste like. I know what it tastes like in my bars for, those 7-8 years I ran bars. I move out to Seattle, first drink of a Budweiser, I'm like, the hell's this? What did you guys do? Is this old? And I'm looking at the born on date. I'm trying to figure it out. Like, what the hell's wrong with this beer? It tastes weird. No, fresh stuff. I mean, it's just like brand new things. I'm like going, why does this taste different in Washington than it does? And then I started asking questions. They say, because it's brewed in California. The brewery for the West Coast is in California. The brewery for most everywhere else is in St. Louis, right? And I think there might be an East Coast version as well. But the water they use in California is different than the water processing or whatever in Missouri. Yeah. Enough so that it changes the taste characteristic. So it tastes different. It could be the exact same recipe except for the water.
Yeah. Except there's a lot of water in beer, right? So
in Seattle, I switched from Budweiser to Coors Light.
Yeah.
For that reason, because I did not like the taste of Budweiser in Seattle.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Hey? Like
right? Just didn't like it. Just didn't like it. Yeah.
And you probably couldn't get me to drink either of those today. It'd be hard pressed.
Yeah, well, you're trying to keep the craft beer industry afloat, right? I don't want this episode to be about they're dead, they're declining. They're not. What we're saying when it's a hardship is that it's the first time since they grew to popularity that they're experiencing flat or declining, growth. That's all. It's still a robust industry. It still represents 26% of all beer sales. It's not going away. It's still a big chunk of your wallet. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like I said, it's just a bit of a settling in period. Like it grew so incredibly fast. The really good ones are they're going to thrive. And some of the ones that maybe weren't as well planned out, don't have as good a beer, that they're going to struggle. And like you said, there's magic. It's the beer. It's the atmosphere. It's probably location. Like there's a number of things that affect it. And like I will say, we were at another brewery. Man, I wish I remembered the name. I'd have to look it up. But we were at another brewery in Houston. We had a little time to kill between meetings, and I got to tell you, the beer there was unbelievable. Like it was really well done. And the owner of the brewery was also the brewmaster, and he was there talking with what I could tell immediately were a bunch of regulars. This is middle of the day on a Tuesday or Wednesday or Tuesday, I think it was. And they were sitting in there and they were talking with him about the beer. They were so passionate about the beer, and it was really good. And I'm hope and pray that it's like, okay, it wasn't maybe the best location. The atmosphere was okay. It was fine. But the beer was unbelievable. It was really well done. And you hope that one thing will help those guys thrive, because they should be around for a long time.
Yeah. So final words, what do you think?
Well, I think if you're thinking of opening a brewery, this might not be the time to look at it, because it's a pretty saturated area. So, it always makes me shudder a little bit with, you can see some industries when it's like, there's times where you're too early. There's times where you're hitting it just right. And there's times where you're a little bit too late, unless you have something that's a differentiator. And so if you're looking at opening a brewery right now, you better have that differentiator. And underserved area, amazing beer, something. But I don't think it's going anywhere. And it's the culture that craft beer has brought to us is so great. Like, have you ever been to a brewery that feels uninviting? Like there's not a whole lot. These little craft breweries they seem to be very much community focused and a really nice atmosphere. And I love that.
Yeah. All right. So from a business standpoint, every time I hear words or read words like saturation or overly penetrated, whatever, the next thing that comes to my mind is consolidation. I think what's going to happen, because of the stagnation and growth, it may be a little bit of decline. I think you'll start to see, just like what happened in banks, just like what happened in some software companies, that these larger companies with cash will start buying up these smaller breweries and increase their portfolio or knock out competition.
Well, and I hope and pray that if because over the last few years, we've seen that. We've seen some craft brewery sort of heavy hitters get bought by the big guys. And I tell you, there's nothing kills a buzz and an atmosphere like them buying it. And there's breweries that were really good that I was swore by that I won't buy from anymore because they're owned by big business now. Maybe some of it's unfair. Maybe it's not. Maybe they don't own that much. But what I do think could happen is there could be this middle ground where you're helping some of these breweries survive. Maybe they work as little collectives, almost like you're buying them, but it's not InBev. It's not one of the biggies that's buying them, and helping them run better and helping them survive. And I could see that happening because there's a little too much. There'll be some that won't make it, but I'm hoping the others can find a way and can do really well. And there'll also be new ones added that are just doing amazing stuff.
Okay, so episode 132, what I learned of Hops and Hardships is go support your local brewery. Get out there. Keep them in business. Keep the industry alive and thriving. But you've been listening to Mike and Blaine. This is Mike and Blaine. Go to our website, buy us a beer, listen to our podcast, buy some merch, and
make sure you follow us, like, share, get involved and chat with us too. And make sure that you don't miss the next episode, 133 coming up next week.
Right on. We'll see you next time, man.
Check out their website at mikeandblaine.com. Then subscribe to the podcast and buy these guys a beer.